Hello, everybody. It's Susan Blueberry Hill from the Susan Blueberry Hill Show. And you know what? This is podcast, I think it's 19. I always seem to lose track, but maybe I'll start going by the date. That might be a little bit easier for me. But it's January 11th and 2021. There's a lot happening, a lot of interesting things going on for us here in the United States of America and the world, in regards to election fraud, etc. And it's very stressful. I'm having a tough time. I have to admit, I've broken my diet. I've been making bouts of chocolate, and granted, it's healthy chocolate. It's chocolate that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. In fact, very little sugar. So it's not really that bad, but it's not good to eat when you're stressed, and that's what I do. I have to admit it. I eat chocolate. So anyway, there we have it. So listen, today's podcast, and by the way, I want to say I hope you're doing well. I hope that you're managing well and that you're okay and you're taking care of yourself, because that's all about what we can do right now. Okay, so this podcast is all about taking care of yourself, and it's really helping you to look younger, to feel younger, and to regain lost vitality no matter what age you are. You could be 30 years old and feel tired and sluggish. You could be 80 years old and feel incredible. So it has a lot to do with your lifestyle habits, and that's what this podcast is all about. It's about becoming the best you that you can be. So I'm going to be talking about things that I've learned that, and there are many. I could go on forever, and obviously I can't discuss everything. I've got to keep it short, but these are a few things that are just on the top of my mind that you could implement today and start to see results, very quickly if you stick with it. And that's what I want to present to you. Things that you can do that will get you results quickly without having to wait a really long time and get frustrated, because we want to have progress, right? All right, looking younger, feeling younger, being better in terms of your physical body. All right, so I mentioned DHEA, right? The hormone that you can buy over the counter, and it increases testosterone and estrogen. And I told you that if you'd listened to my podcast about it, I had the anti-aging hormone ? It is indeed, in my experience, an anti-aging hormone. Now, I did mention to you guys that I had fallen and badly injured my left wrist, and it's been 5 weeks, I think. 5 weeks, and my wrist is still badly injured. It increases, improves every day very, very slightly. But since I've been taking DHEA, 50 milligrams a day, has been about a week, I think, I've seen significant reduction in the inflammation. And so if you have any kind of injury, and again, I want to make sure you know that DHEA is not for everyone, and it's especially not for people who are pregnant, breastfeeding, have some kind of a chronic illness, under the care of a physician. It's not good if you have a propensity for hormone-related cancers. You need to be very careful. So please research this before you go out and buy it, especially if you are someone who's, undergoing medical care. All right, there's my disclaimer. And I'm not a doctor, okay? I need to say that. Excuse me, frog in my throat. DHEA. It's great. I have to say, from my personal experience, that I have definitely noticed a dramatic, in one day taking 50 milligrams, the inflammation in my wrist and hand went down dramatically. Now, it's not 100%. I still have some swelling in my fingers and in my wrist, I must admit. But it's way better, and I noticed immediately that it seemed to be healing quicker. Now, with this type of a sprain, it's the ligaments, and they're like very, very few, if any. I mean, it's really tough to heal because there's like no blood vessels there, or like maybe one or two, The blood supply is very limited to ligaments. They're mostly collagen. So yes, I am taking collagen, and I haven't really seemed to notice any difference with the collagen. But it doesn't mean it's not working. I just haven't noticed it. So DHEA, what does it do? Why should you take it? Well, one thing is that it inhibits weight gain. And if you're somebody who There was a study done for rats being fed a high-fat diet, and this is from Dr. Mercola's website. I got this information. I want to give credit where credit is due. And I highly respect Dr. Mercola. All of his articles are very well researched, and there are all the links to the studies there. So please go and look yourself. Don't just take my word for it. So inhibits weight gain, and there was a study done with rats. They were fed high-fat diets, and they did not put on weight. So this is a good for just that alone, if nothing else, but increases testosterone and estrogen. This is especially important for us as we age. Now, for those of you who are younger, you're not going to, this doesn't make any sense to you because you already have your own naturally occurring DHEA that your own body produces. But each year after the age of about 30 or so, and it varies from individual to individual, your body's ability to produce this DHEA dramatically reduces each year by about 2%. And then, of course, by the time you're 70, 80 years of age, you barely produce any. So when you start taking this later on in life, you will notice a dramatic increase in a lot of different areas. So for, especially for women, the sex drive reduces, and also the sexual functioning also declines for men and women as we age. So this increases, and this is a big deal because, like I mentioned, women have loss of, their vaginal secretions reduce. They suffer from dryness, and it's painful to have sex. So this is a big deal, and this particular hormone really helps to thicken the walls of the vagina and to increase libido, and it also helps men quite a bit with erectile dysfunction. So really good stuff here. And another thing, if you're doing resistance training, this is something that can also help to increase strength and muscle mass. And that's a big deal if you're trying to put on muscle. Especially as we get older, we lose muscle mass. So this is something that you could help an elderly parent to start to regain muscle function and put on muscle and prevent muscle wasting with this particular hormone. Of course, you need to be doing the resistance training. There's no magic pill, right? So that's my take on DHEA, and I'm going to continue to report to you as time goes on what happens to me as I continue to take it. So it's a really, really good addition to help with the aging process. All right. Number 2, the HIIT training, high-intensity interval training. I've spoken about this before. I absolutely love it. I love it because we don't have a lot of time to be going out and exercising for hours. I used to be a competitive cyclist, and I used to go out and ride my bike for hours and hours. And, it's very time consuming and it's exhausting and you're really tired. So it's just so much effort to be doing that. And, with the way our lives are today, it's just not really practical to do that. So the HIIT training is great because in 25 minutes time, which is really not that much time, you can do a very intense workout and actually really get your body to burn tremendous amounts of body fat. So here's the information. HIIT training, high interval intensity training, it actually increases human growth hormone by 771%, which is like ridiculous. I've even read that it's up to 1,000%, but I don't know if it's that high. So this is what it does. So it minimizes the aging process, the human growth hormone. This is something that we produce within our own bodies. I think it's in the pituitary gland we produce it. And so anything that minimizes the aging process is great, okay? And it increases lean muscle mass. Again, another factor for increasing lean muscle mass. It decreases body fat, so this is great too, and it decreases stress levels. And I know, for me, whenever I get super stressed, I have gone out and done some really intense exercise and felt a lot better. So it definitely works. So how do you do it? Well, you need to exert yourself pretty intensely, around 80 to 100% effort. And you need to do this between 20 to 30 seconds. And then you're going to rest for like 30 to 90 seconds. And if you're first starting out, and you have some risk factors like smoking and stuff, you need to be very cautious and careful, okay? This is not for everybody. And you do need to make sure that you're not going to be hurt by this, okay? But for those of you who are relatively healthy and you do exercise, okay, then I would recommend that this is how I started. I did it on a couple of different machines at the gym, the elliptical and the recumbent bicycle. And I found out that I really liked the recumbent bicycle the most. And that had a lot to do with the fact that I injured my wrist so badly. Just trying to be comfortable with that. The elliptical was more difficult because it was more jarring to my limb that was injured. But anyway, so sitting on the recumbent bike, so I would warm up for like 3 to 5 minutes, depending on, how much activity I've already done prior to this exercise. And then at a lower intensity, and then I would raise it up to, for me, it was level 4. That was appropriate for me. And I would do that for 30 seconds. And then for 90 seconds, for 30 seconds, I would bring it up to level 8. And then it was pretty intense. And then I would drop it down to level 4 for 90 seconds. And then I've experimented the next month. I did that for a month. And then the next month I did it where I did 30 seconds and then 30 seconds and then 30 seconds. So the intervals were like 1 to 1, evenly. And that was a little bit more difficult. So I didn't proceed with that. I tried it. It was just a little too hard. So then I decided to go 60 seconds interval and a minute and a half rest. But that just seemed to be a little bit, it was okay. And then I decided to change it up the next month where I raised up the level to be more resistance. And then I did it 30 to 90. And I really kind of liked that pace. And then I decided to add on more volume. So I did actually longer. So I increased it to like 30 minutes, 35 minutes, that kind of thing. So you can experiment and play around with it. But the main point that Dr. Mercola mentions, this is again from his website, is that you need to remember that if you want to keep your growth hormone activated, because it will be activated for a full 24 hours after you do this, you have to not take in any carbohydrate for an hour. That's what he recommends. Then I did see that he said no fructose, so I definitely no fructose, but just keep your carbohydrate, none for at least an hour, and that does take a little willpower. But if you do that, you're going to see that your fat loss will skyrocket. It's pretty amazing. You'll just all of a sudden turn around and look, and like not so much longer after you did that exercise, you'll see a whole bunch of fat is gone off your body. It's that miraculous. So I'd like to recommend that to you. I've had a lot of really good results with it. I would like to point out that you need to be careful not to overdo this because you don't want to hurt yourself, and you want to be cautious just to do it no more than 3 times per week. That's the recommended amount of time doing this. All right, so that's HIIT training. Now we're going to move on to something called intermittent fasting. For those of you who've never heard of this before, I'm going to introduce it to you. This is something that's always worked very well for me, and I have to be kind of conscious about it because, again, when I'm stressed, I want to eat, and I've been really stressed lately with all this election fraud stuff. So I prefer to stop eating between 5 and 6 p.m. If you work at night, it's really, really hard. I freaking had a really hard time when I worked in restaurants because I would be starving, after I finished working because you just expend so many calories running around like a crazy maniac. But so I like the way my life is now. I'm not super active in the evenings, and it's easy. I can stop at 5 or 6, and that's it. And then I don't eat again until maybe 8 or 9 in the morning. So that's a good 14-hour window. So what is intermittent fasting? Well, it's mimicking our ancestral patterns of eating where, when we were cavemen, well, when our ancestors were cavemen, they didn't have a refrigerator or cupboards where they went and pulled out, different foods to eat. They had to go out and get it, physically go out and hunt and gather to get food. So there would be long periods of time where they wouldn't eat. And so this is our normal, natural way that our bodies were designed to eat, is that we were meant to go long periods of time without eating. And then when we did eat, it would probably be in a short window of time, maybe 6 hours, and that would be it. Then we would have to go and look again for food. So this is the way our bodies are designed to eat. So just keep that in the back of your mind. When we go and we eat all day long, a little snack here, a snack there, or we're constantly eating, or we're eating 4 to 6 meals a day. And that's something that's big in the bodybuilding world, that they always kind of recommend that. It's really not good. It's never been good for me to eat that way. And I'm going to explain to you why. If you've done well with it, that's great. But I'm going to explain to you why it didn't really work for me. So, when you eat nonstop, your body utilizes sugar for fuel, right? Unless, of course, you're doing keto dieting, then that's a totally different story. But you're probably not going to want to eat frequently if you're doing keto. So what this does is it downregulates enzymes, right, that utilize and store fat. So what happens is that you actually progressively become more insulin resistant and you start to gain weight, which means that insulin is secreted when you eat, and then because there's constantly available food, your body just it can't really absorb the glucose into the cells, and so it just messes up your hormonal sensitivity in this regards. And then it makes this glucose just get stored as fat. And so this is kind of like, it's really the beginning of the end when you become insulin resistant. It just really is a bad thing. And I don't have time to go into all of that here and get too technical with you, but just know that we want to get our bodies in alignment with the way they're meant to be run. And for me, I'm just going to tell you my own experience. I had a real weight problem where I had terrible sugar addiction. I think I've mentioned this before. And big problem, just constantly craving sugar. And I would just go and eat it. And this was ever since I was a little girl. I was kind of chubby as a little girl. I remember being 10 years old and having like a fat gut. And I wasn't like 300 pounds, but I got teased a lot. People would say I was fat. I was known as the fat girl. And I really loved ballet. I wanted to be a ballerina. And that was really in my heart, to be a dancer, like a professional dancer. And I had a terrible confidence problem, and it had a lot to do with what I looked like, and then I was overweight, felt very self-conscious, and I looked fat as a ballerina, and so I didn't pursue that because I had this weight problem, and that's something, is one of my regrets in life. Had I not had this terrible sugar addiction, I maybe would have done something, and I think it really undermined my health. In fact, I'm sure that it has, and it centers around the fact that I had a lot of parasites, and I always had kitties and doggies and stuff, and I would let them lick me on my mouth, and of course I got worms, and I know it's disgusting, believe me, but that's what causes the sugar addiction, is these parasites, and because they actually send you chemical messages for you to eat the foods that they love. They love sugar. And so when you are craving the sugar, it's actually them controlling your mind. This is scientifically proven. And it's if you've never heard this before, I'm breaking it to you. But yes, parasites do control your mind. So, this went on for a long time. And I, through my own willpower, would stop eating sugar. And I did do a parasite cleanse when I was 40 years old. And yes, a whole bunch of disgusting looking things came out, and I didn't look at them. I just flushed them away. But they were parasites indeed, and there was a lot of them. And The thing is that if you are infested with these things, then they take a long time to get rid of. You can't just do it in 30 days. And that's what I thought. I thought, oh, I'll just do this cleanse in 30 days and they'll be gone. Well, it didn't happen that way. And they build up. And so what I found out is the more toxic you become, in every decade you're on the planet, you've got a lot more toxins in your body than you were the 10 years prior. And I never had done any real detoxifying, and I, of course, consumed things with all kinds of chemicals, herbicides, pesticides. I just did. I had lots of glyphosate in my body. I ate GMOs. Didn't really know a real lot about GMOs. I had heard about them, but I didn't really know everything about them at the time. So when you have that much pollution in your body, the parasites love to live in that. They thrive in that kind of environment. And so it's kind of like the perfect storm, I guess you could say. So when I finally did the parasite cleanse, took quite a while, but I still have them a little bit now, but they're massively reduced. I mean, I had hundreds upon hundreds of them come out. So if you have a sugar addiction, you probably do have parasites. Okay. Now, the thing about parasites, right, is that parasites age you. And what happened to me is that they really, in the end, rapidly aged my body. My face became very, very wrinkled. And prior to that, I would assume, living out in California, there's a lot of radiation coming from Japan, right, coming over with the way the wind currents blow to the east and across the Pacific Ocean. And California is just inundated with all that radiation from, the nuclear meltdown there. And I can only assume, that I got a lot of it because I spent a lot of time outside. I would always walk and ride my bike and stuff. And I just assumed that this is the reason why I was so riddled with parasites. And I used to eat sushi all the time, and then I worked with hundreds of animals. So I just think it all got compounded. And it aged my face. It looked really bad. And it's taken a long time to get where I am today. It's not perfect. I still have some wrinkles, but it is quite a bit better. I mean, I look back at some photos taken 3 years ago, and I look a lot older. So I'm pleased with the progress I've made, but yet it's not 100%, of course. So detoxing parasites is important, and not, only from the vanity side of things, but I had tremendous, actually, how you want to know, how did you know, Sue? Because parasites don't want you to know they're there. They hide. How I knew was, well, first of all, I had a friend who was a romantic interest of mine, and he told me that he had parasites. And after that, he didn't really want to hang out with me so much anymore. He never really talked about it. But from my understanding, he had massive amounts of worms come out of him. So I'm sure that was a factor in me also having these parasites, And then secondly, I remember driving, and I reached around, I wasn't going very fast, but I reached around and I kind of scratched my shoulder, and it hurt. It felt like somebody was stabbing me with a knife. It was excruciatingly painful. And when that happened, I just knew something was very, very, very wrong. And so I just I'm not really one to go to the doctor so much because I've had so many misdiagnoses go on with doctors, and I kind of lost faith. I've become disenchanted. And I know there's some really good doctors, but I just didn't want to go. So I kind of turned within, and I kind of asked my internal guidance system what I should do. And I got, you need to do a detox. And I thought, and that made sense to me, because I had never really done one. And so I did a detox with David Wolfe, the nutritionist, the author, the raw foodist guy with the NutriBullet system. And he talked about parasites, and I was sure that I didn't have them, but I decided to do a cleanse, and sure enough, I did. And it was quite alarming. So I'd like to encourage you to do a parasite cleanse, because you won't know for sure that you have them until you do it. And then once you see them come out of your body, it will prove to you that they're real. Because I know, most Western doctors don't know anything about parasites, and we've been conditioned to believe that it only happens in third world countries, but it's not true. I know since I've been, involved with this whole parasite thing, I've met so many people that have had them. So it's real and it's true. And, you're listening to me, definitely have had them. Okay. So, if, obviously I could go on and on and on about all these different ways that you could look younger. There's a million ways, and I can only, talk a few ways here. But I'm going to finish with one other way, and that's the alkaline diet. It's something that I started to do right around the time that I started cleansing, because I bought a NutriBullet blender, and I wanted to start having a smoothie every morning, increasing the amount of plants that I was taking into my diet. And, I really like the whole idea of kind of being a mad scientist, and adding a little bit of this and a scoop of that and, some wild this or that, and adding it all in and then drinking it down. And then, I just felt better and better and better. And so it's a ritual for me. I have not missed one single day in 2 years since I started doing it. It's pretty cool. So what's the deal with alkaline diet? So I heard Tony Robbins talk about it in a lecture he was giving to, one of his trainings that he does to his group of, it was business people. And he said to the group, this is not something that's talked about. In fact, I'm probably the only person that's going to tell you about it in like a training for business that you'll hear about. He said, but it's extremely important. And I feel very honored to be the one to bring this critical life-saving information to you. And I really encourage you to listen and take notes and really open your mind to what I'm saying, because this will literally save your life. So he was, he's an excellent trainer. And so I really got a lot out of it. He said, it's all about, he started with a story. So this really brings it home. When we hear stories, it makes us real for us. And he talked about, he got a phone call from, I believe it was a dear friend of his that he had known for a long time. And I believe it was a woman. And she said that she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And I don't remember what kind of cancer. It might have been breast cancer, but I can't recall. Or it might even been, I think it was pancreatic cancer, which is extremely difficult to heal with, most oncologists will say that it's a death sentence, right? But I know otherwise, having been in this field for a while, that there are life-saving treatments that are being suppressed. So this is why he was saying that this is critical for you to listen to this, because if you ever were to receive a diagnosis with this type of cancer and you went to a traditional doctor, they would tell you that there's no cure. And there is a cure, there are cures, but they're being suppressed. So what he said was, so his friend came to him and said, the doctor said, I'm going to die. And he was really shooken up, because he has the heart of a warrior. He doesn't give up. He has like a mantra, I'm going to find the answer. I'm going to, if the answer is going to come to me, I know that I can figure this out. And so he really went deep into his internal place of meditation. And I don't know if he meditated or what exactly he did now, because I heard this a while back. But he got an answer, and he started to research, and he found all, like, he just researched, and he read like all these different books, because he was a speed reader, right? And he got like all this conflicting information, and one said do this, the other one said don't do this. It was just crazy. So he said, of all the information that he found, there was one thing that was common, and he said it was an alkaline diet. And that basically is eating a plant-based diet, keeping your animal proteins lower, and eating way more plant-based foods. And that, he said, the reason why, let me just look at my notes here. The alkaline-based diet, because it reduces inflammation, it helps balance the blood pH level. pH level, and it stops acceleration of aging. So I looked it up a little more on Dr. Axe's website to get a little bit more information. And he says that it helps slow down degeneration of tissues and bone mass, which can hinder these from too much acidity. I can't read my notes. It's a loss of key minerals is what occurs when you have high acidic blood. You lose minerals, and these minerals are very important because they protect bone density and muscle mass. But the most important thing to remember is that it lowers chronic inflammation, and inflammation is always present in any major illness, because what's happening, if we go to a cellular level, we're looking at cell danger response. Now remember, the cell can only produce energy or fight off from invasion, but it can't do both. So in every case of a major chronic illness, there'll be inflammation, which is a key marker that something is very wrong, which when I was telling you about how I had all that terrible soreness in my body, I had cell danger response. I had an inflammation because my immune system couldn't fight off all these invaders in my body, the parasites. So having this, having this type of diet, the alkaline diet, it lowers inflammation. This is very important. And it helps to boost vitamin absorption, and it prevents magnesium deficiency. And magnesium, if you don't know, is it's the master mineral, and it's responsible for, I think it's like 200, something like that. I don't know the exact number, I can't remember now, but around 200 biochemical processes in the body. It's absolutely required, and if you don't have magnesium in your body, enough of it, you're going to have all kinds of problems, including heart palpitations. You'll get migraine headache, or you could get migraine headaches. You could get restless leg syndrome. My dog actually had a magnesium deficiency because he had parasites, because these parasites really rob you of your minerals and your vital nutrients. He was getting grand mal seizures. So very, very interesting how this mineral is absolutely critical. So important to note that this type of diet, the alkaline diet, also prevents cancer. And that's what Tony Robbins was saying. You need to know this because it prevents cancer. If you learn nothing else in his seminar, he wants you to know the alkaline diet prevents cancer. And just to let you know, he told his friend who was diagnosed with the cancer, what he had found, and he gave her all the information, and he said, I really want you to be the one to decide what you want to do. Whatever you choose, I'll honor it. And so she decided to give it a go. She didn't want to do the chemo and radiation. So she did the diet, and I don't remember how long, but she was completely healed within X amount of time. So it definitely works. It worked for her anyway. I know there's a lot of factors, and maybe some of you will think I'm crazy or this is crazy, but there's a lot of science behind this. So, that's pretty important, and you're not going to get that from your doctor unless your doctor is very open-minded. But I have to say, it's not their fault, but they're taught in medical school that, it's just drugs and surgery. And then, of course, if you get cancer, it's just all about chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, etc. There's nothing about prevention. It's only about detection. So when you go to the doctor, they're only going to try to find it. They're never going to help you prevent it because they're not taught that. That is not the way they practice medicine. And in fact, if many doctors do try to practice that type of medicine, they could very well have their license removed. So that's the way the system is set up. It's set up to keep you sick, to get you sick with the GMOs, the crappy diet, right? The glyphosate, etc. And then once you get into the medical system, they're going to keep you sicker, and then you'll die eventually. That's how it all works. So you really need to understand these very important principles. And then also, this will help you maintain healthy weight. And that's, again, another one for looking younger. But my whole point here is that if you want to look young, it all comes from having health. If you don't have health, even if you're younger, I mean, I can see people in their 20s and I can tell you exactly what they eat, if they're healthy or not. It's obvious to me. And then obviously each year that you eat poorly and don't exercise and don't take care of yourself, it just gets compounded. All right, so that's a little bit about getting younger, how to look younger, how to feel younger, how to get healthier, and it's all about increasing vitality. If you'd like to learn more about how to tighten loose, saggy skin, because that has always been a problem with aging, I have a report called The Secret Formula for Tightening Loose, Saggy Skin. And you can get that by going to the URL youngerlookingskin.xyz, and you can get that for free. Just enter your name and email, and you will get that report instantly on my one-pager. So the name of the URL is youngerlookingskin.xyz. So thanks so much for listening. This is Susan Blueberry Hill, and you have a great, bright, and shiny day.